questions from people who are curious about their health and they're curious about
how to preserve their health. Yeah, if they're sick, they want to know alternative, natural healing.
Yes.
That they're just tired of drugs and
right.
they want safer,
exactly,
better response system, for example.
Because I'm not sure where you stand on this.
But I promote wellness more than illness.
Yeah.
And I promote health more than disease and death. So there's something like that.
Because that's actually one of the problems we have with Western medicine, and especially in regards to pharmaceutical drugs. Because even though pharmaceutical drugs are approved, they're regulated, I think it's safe to say that a lot of pharmaceutical drugs have dangerous side effects.
Yeah.
And every time
that has been proven already, time and again.
I mean, every time we give, everybody's body chemistry is different, and even though they do studies, wide-ranging, double-blind studies.
FDA has pulled out a lot of drugs. FDA has pulled out a lot of drugs because it has killed a lot of people.
Oh, it's staggering. I mean, actually, if you look at the rates of injury and death from pharmaceuticals, wow.
It's like one of the 10 leading causes of death in the United States.
Yes. Well, and it's funny because a lot of people in their minds, they imagine that, for example, cannabis or marijuana is somehow dangerous, when in fact there's never been a single death attributed to just simple cannabis use, and so. Would you say that the safety profile of cannabis is probably?
I would say generally, because I've been using a lot of medicinal plants in my 40-year practice, I always say that I have to see toxicities coming out of a regular 90 to 95% of medicinal plants are more on the safe side than synthetic drugs. Like the
I mean, there are some dangerous natural plants too, like belladonna is deadly. Deadly nightshade is in fact the popular term for that one. But there's a lot of benefit to be had from wholesome nutrition, and from there's plants.
Even the coca plant and the coffee plant.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's showing that the benefits of cacao theobromide is incredible. Resveratrol from from grapes, and I mean there's
other fruits.
There are incredible benefits from these natural remedies.
I'd like to talk also of our Philippine experience. That I always tell those who are even afraid of the recreational cannabis. Well, first I would say, or the dangers of of so-called marijuana, where are there none? I always tell them that, look, we have actually legalized the use of medical morphine.
Right.
Okay, so medical morphine have been with us for the last 50 years.
Right.
50 years.
Yes.
And I tell them, has there been any abuse of morphine, given the legal framework that it has been allowed for cancer, pain, and so many other kinds of pain? We have a special license for doctors to prescribe it, and drugstores have also special licenses to sell it.
Yes.
So where's the controversy? Why is nobody raising? Because there is none. There is no abuse. There is no misuse of morphine in the proper context of its use. And I tell this as a positive experience, like the same way that we talk of the negative experience of nicotine and tobacco and cigarette. But I'm just saying that, look, there is even a much more powerful drug.
Yes, that's available, that doctors are giving out to people all the time, every day.
But who's abusing
Yes.
this? Where is the abuse? Why are we so afraid that marijuana will be abused? When, in fact, it's such
safer. It's not
a lot safer.
Yeah.
It's a lot safer than morphine, and of course, greatly better than nicotine.
Yes.
And tobacco. I mean, I just like to put that across because, as I said, my advocacy is just to to calm the fear that there is nothing to fear,
Yes.
and to, even the worries are dissipated by some rational, and even just looking at our own Filipino experience. So why are we so fearsome? Well,
Of traditional
morphine,
medicine.
yeah. Well, first of all,
Yeah.
I'm just citing that morphine has always been with us in
Yes.
the last 50 years, and there has been no reported death due to morphine.
Yes.
There has been no reported abuse.
Right.
Give me one single abuse.
Right.
There is none. But there has been no doctor that has been placed in jail or any seller
Right.
because they have abused morphine. Everybody followed the limits or whatever you call the boundaries of it and think. But again, I always challenge
Yes.
also, but look at the negative side. How much more are going to die of tobacco-related diseases?
Absolutely. Yes.
And nicotine addiction. You know that, I'm going to tell 50% of our legislators are smoking.
Wow. Really? Is that high? You
Well-
think? For cigarette use?
Of
They all
course.
smoke. 50%.
Yeah, so
Oh my
you
God.
got-
That's a high number.
I always say, you legislators who are smoking and addicted,
Oh.
you know you
Addicted to
cannot
nicotine
even
and
leave
cigarettes.
it.
Yeah.
You know that you cannot even stay out of it, but
It's so addictive.
if you have tried marijuana, you can. If you want
Yes.
to leave it, you can leave it. I mean, it's unlike cigarette smoking.
Yes. So,
Yeah, the guts, what they call the cold turkey.
yeah, cold turkey.
I mean,
But if you've ever tried quitting nicotine or cigarettes cold turkey, you'll find that it's actually been shown to be almost as difficult as quitting some narcotics.
It's just like to say
unbelievably-
that I
Yeah.
also attend international meetings of tobacco-free world,
Good.
and then evaluated
I applaud that.
all nicotine cessation, smoke cessation, cigarettes are all failures. I mean, mainly because of
Yeah.
the grievous, addictive.
I mean, the low benefit and the high potential for addiction and negative health consequences. Can I say something about morphine? So morphine is, of course, one of the natural alkaloids of
Yes.
opium.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that's also a natural plant. It's a flower and a bud.
Coffee,
And
it's
it-
just in bread.
Yeah, the poppy seeds. You can test positive for opium just for consuming a poppy seed bread. It's funny, and so I mean in harm reduction I teach moderation in everything. Same with cannabis. This is one of my core
Yes.
principles. So same thing with
Yes, right.
opium. Also opiates, narcotics can be used in moderation for medicinal purposes. But there is a higher profile of addiction with compared to marijuana. So that's one thing that's very interesting.
Yet we didn't abuse morphine.
Yeah, but yet.
I mean, I'm saying
yeah.
that
Yeah.
it's a much more addictive drug. It's a much more it has its own dangers, but
Yeah.
nobody has abused in the last 50 years.
Personally, I'm not afraid.
I'm saying that I mean just to really tell our legislators that there's
Yeah.
almost nothing to fear
Yeah.
in medical marijuana.
Yes, I mean there is actually nothing to fear. Especially you're promoting CBDs, which are very effective for numerous chronic illnesses and conditions, and especially very useful in practical application for pain management.
Yes.
CBDs have an extensive amount of hard science research and literature that shows that compared to placebos,
I always
it's
tell
very
my friends
efficient.
doctors that we believe in evidence-based medicine.
Yeah,
So how come
evidence-based
we're
medicine.
not
We should have an
believing-
evidence-based society.
Why are we not believing in CBD?
Yeah, we should have an evidence-based law. We should have an evidence-based education system.
It
Yeah.
is supposed to be the main thing, but if I hear physicians objecting to medical marijuana, I say, hey guys.
They haven't looked at the evidence.
No, I mean, yes.
That's part of it.
And
the myths.
Are you practicing evidence-based
Yeah,
medicine?
yeah. And part of it is the
Please.
myths. The myths grow so large.
Please be consistent.
Yeah,
Evidence-based
please.
medicine.
Yeah.
When you try to attack medical But if you look at it, really, I always explain, particularly if I talk to a medical community, that how did the world survive the last 10,000 years? human history,
That's right.
and written history of 5,000 years. And
That's right.
these were really based on all traditional indigenous medicine of a particular country or empire. And when you look at modern medicine that we are seeing now, is literally we can label it as 300 years versus 5,000 years of written histories of traditional indigenous medicine of China, India, Persia. And when we look at the last 300 years, of course, I will admit there's a lot of, let's say, also development in terms of human mind input into medicine. But even when I trace real, honest to goodness, what we practice right now as what we call conventional medicine is only since 1902 or the last 110 years.
Wow.
Or 115 years of real. Well, what is the dominant so-called conventional medicine?
Right.
In the world today, really only started with 1902.
Right.
Because of a declaration of the United States that this is the medicine to follow in the world. At that time, of course, it was America that dominated the world.
Yes, that's right. And American corporations as well who wanted to maximize on their earnings.
Okay, so in the same sense that I have used a lot of medicinal plants, and of course Asia continues to be the center of medicinal plants, whether you look at India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and on this side of East Asia we have China, Japan, Korea, and even Southeast Asia.
In the Philippines.
And the Philippines, we have 1,500 medicinal plants. We are the third most biodiverse country in the world. The first one is Brazil, second is Indonesia, and third. So we're even more biodiverse in terms of numbers of medicinal plants than China and India, or combined Europe and United States, just to put it up.
I'm curious.
But we're so far richer in our medicinal plants culture. Well, of course, in similarity to Indonesia, which is Jammu, and Brazil.
Right. Especially on the village level, I bet people turn to traditional
even right now, because I do surveys of traditional healers. They're also in the urban areas.
Okay.
And existing side by side with modern hospitals and medical centers.
Okay.
Yet people patronize it because of the cultural system.
Would you agree with the statement that food is basically medicine?
Yes, of course, I believe that.
This is something.
If you listen to my radio program, it's the message that I'm sending.
Oh, good.
Food is medicine.
Because this has been my message as well for almost 15 years, is that with promoting wellness and also promoting safer use of certain medicines and certain drugs, is that really you have to look at the whole picture. It's not just one thing. There is no magic bullet. For example,
anybody who claims this is cure-all, I say, I'm sorry. There is no cure-all. Although I firmly believe in medicinal plants, but there is no one single plant that will cure all.
Yeah.
As I said, food is medicine.
Yeah.
And there are as many food made, given to us by God in the whole world. That was the original, actually that was the original life-giving in the last 10,000 years of human history.
I think that the basic health begins with the food and access to nutrition. Precisely. And if people have access to nutrition and knowledge of nutrition, for example, with your book, you talk about
the best 100 Philippine medicinal plants.
exactly.
Or fruits and vegetables with medicinal properties.
Yes.
Which is my original book. Yes.
One thing I'm curious about is that in your book, you list so many important plants and herbs for medicinal use.
Trees.
And trees, yes. But one thing that's almost noticeably missing is cannabis.
Yeah.
Is it because of the controversy because of surrounding cannabis and or marijuana? In
but I first centered on our indigenous Filipino medicine.
Yeah, and cannabis is not indigenous originally to the Philippines.
Yes. So in a sense, we first focus on what is indigenous and what is thriving and what is easily accessible.
Right.
That is the first 100. I'm starting my new book, the next 200.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
When does that come out?
Hopefully by the end of this year. Well, it took me 5 years to do this, but
I mean, it's a thick book.
I hope it will gain enough popularity to attract young doctors to join me and do my research for the next 200.
Yeah, I mean, if you could really learn a lot just by...
Actually, what I did there, just to show you how I came up with that, I consulted 10 people and asked them to nominate 25 of your best. What do you think are the 25 best Philippine medicinal plants? And so everybody, so 10 times 25, technically that's 250, but some nominated exactly the same plant. So
it was a vote. It was, you just took...
I gave the first 100.
It was a form of crowdsourcing where, yes, you got everyone's,
So even for the next 200, whether some will place marijuana there, I will not delete nor I will censor it. But I'm allowing a community of practitioners also to nominate, and I think it's
important.
It's important that
experts.
The key thing here is that these are easily accessible, easily available to the ordinary Filipino.
Well, and plus, if
for now.
And plus, if cannabis.
But don't worry about cannabis; it will come out soon.
Well, yes, well that's the thing. Cannabis is illegal, so it's not exactly accessible. At least not if somebody values their freedom. They want to remain safe and out of jail.
I do see every now and then in some gardens.
Yeah.
There'll be a plant or 2 or 10 growing amidst.
Yes.
Organic vegetables and fruits.
Yeah, and then yes. Yeah, I mean, usually people will have something like that growing in their garden.
Yet until we legalize them.
That's right.
Where I see them.
Well, and in fact, it should just be one of those medicinal herbs that grows in the garden next to
it should be
other herbs.
I agree with you.
Yes. One interesting thing is the terminology regarding marijuana and even the use of the word drugs is so confusing because when we say the word drugs, it's just like I'm from the United States, and in the United States, especially I grew up in the 1980s, and the word drugs was a very dirty word. I mean, people would hear the word drugs and they would immediately have evil thoughts. And it's true, that word can have negative connotations. However,
that's why we're using medicines.
The confusing thing, I think, is that
medicinal plants.
The confusing thing is that a lot of things are drugs. If we're just talking about psychoactives, things that affect the brain, then I mean, people should know that alcohol is a drug, caffeine is a drug. Every pharmaceutical drug, some of them, especially for psychology, used by psychologists, and are powerful mind-altering drugs. Take, for example, SSRIs or other. These are very powerful
even
drugs.
Diazepams.
Even diazepam, the benzodiazepines, including diazepam, clonazepam, alprazolam, all of them are very...
All that derivatives.
Yes, and it's just interesting because those pharmaceutical drugs are quite addictive. Generally, when somebody is taking a course of those drugs, they have to taper down from it, if they're even able to quit it. But yet, cannabis or marijuana has a very low profile in regards to physical addiction, and even the psychological addiction is relatively.
What happens is, of course, the myth becomes stronger than the truth. And in a sense, that is what we'd like to correct in this present day 21st century.
Right.
That we separate the legend, the myth.
Yes.
And the connotations that have been known with marijuana, whereas really there's nothing to fear about marijuana.
I agree 100%.
And that's why I like to always use, as part of my advocacy, I just say medical marijuana. So and in that medical marijuana thing, in the sense that even most, I would say 90% of our Filipino doctors do not even discern what is medical marijuana from recreational
medicine,
or use marijuana, for example. In the Philippine context, really, because of so much myth and legends on marijuana, I'd like to approach it the way I've been approaching it at the legal level, call it, or the Now they want to have it legislated, which of course it's the first step. Well, a lot of struggles to be is that, I mean, even just to say that the two major, of course there are more, any medicinal plant or any plant always have more what they call phytochemicals. But the
Absolutely,
two major
yes.
phytochemicals that are now in the in the universe of things is the CBD
Yes.
and the THC. Of course, there are longer names so that I will allow the audience who's seeing this to search what
Do their own
CBD
research.
and
It's important to do their own research. Yes.
THC.
Yes.
And,
But just to be clear,
initially saying that I will argue always now, I mean, just for the sake of even legalization of marijuana, just to fast track it, that there's nothing to fear
right.
and nothing to be afraid about the CBD
CBDs.
component
Yes.
of marijuana. Much as I'd love to say that also in the THC component, which is
Sure.
supposedly recreational marijuana, I would like to veer away. I mean, as a tactic,
Right.
call it as a same time a strategy, veer away from the controversial, but put everybody at peace
Right.
and in harmony and in quick consonance that we should approve as early as possible the use of medical marijuana, aka also
Yes.
known as CBD. Okay.
I mean, one of the advocacies that
In whatever form CBD is.
one of the advocacies that I tried to do, that I did do with my trees brand, with the our trees community that I created and developed over 3.5 years, is that I tried to focus on this knowledge of how there are different strains of cannabis and there's different components of cannabis, and especially with medical marijuana, there's different ways to use medical marijuana that will benefit different patients.
Yes, definitely.
And so CBDs are very important for pain management and epilepsy and other, for a lot of people, these are chronic medical conditions.
Particularly with neurological.
Yes, and neurological. And in fact, CBDs may be better for neurological diseases,
Right.
chronic conditions.
Like ALS.
Yes,
or even
ALS.
Parkinson's.
Yes.
Things like that.
And so one initiative that I did from a harm reduction standpoint was I worked to promote vaporizers, which although, this is a harm reduction principle. I have a background in harm reduction. I was a co-administrator of the largest harm reduction community on the internet called bluelight.org for 2.5 years. And we believe in doing no harm, and we believe in harm reduction principles, which is people are going to use medicinal or recreational drugs no matter what. How do we make it safer? And so one thing I focus on with cannabis already has such a high safety profile that I focused on the vaporizers. Because anytime you're breathing in the plant material, even though it's shown to have some health benefits, just the cannabis plant in general, but anytime you're breathing in burned plant material, it's not fantastic for the lungs. I mean, so if you can minimize the smoke that's being taken in with, say, vaporizers or e-cigarettes. I'm curious about your stance on e-cigarettes. Well, cigarettes are not the same thing as cannabis. I mean, nicotine and tobacco is a whole other, those are dangerous. We can agree those are dangerous drugs.
Tobacco are even more dangerous, yet our legislators have allowed it.
It's incredible for all these years.
Yeah.
All these people getting sick, all these cases of lung cancer.
There's not even an iota of banning
Oh, it's
tobacco.
terrible.
Except just to increase taxes.
Yeah, I mean, the taxes are good. It's an economic way of trying to get people to quit. But nicotine is so addictive that it's not easy to quit, is it?
I mean, so people, or our legislators always make a lot of fuss about marijuana, but how about making a fuss about nicotine and tobacco?
Yeah, nicotine and tobacco kills more people than all other drugs combined on the face of the earth.
Yes.
But yet anybody...
We have allowed it.
We've allowed it almost with a blind eye, and governments have allowed it.
And increased taxes. So in this sense, this is where there's still a lot to be known. Even our lawmakers that have started to speak out against marijuana, they're mainly talking of recreation, of which also I have nothing against it, because early on in my professional or even student life, I've been exposed to a culture, particularly in Europe, wherein, in fact, it has brought more positive affirmation, good things rather than negative things.
I mean,
when I'm citing in particular Netherlands and Sweden, for example.
Absolutely. Countries that have more liberal and reasonable and open policies regarding cannabis and other smart drugs, as they may even call it in Holland. I mean, the interesting thing is that cannabis has numerous uses. One interesting thing that people often don't realize is that it's good for creativity. I mean, look at the Beatles. I mean, look at anybody's favorite band, musical act, writers.
They have done something in the name
of American presidents, Barack Obama. I mean, there are so many people that have been inspired by perhaps experiences that they had, perhaps life-changing experiences that they had with so-called smart drugs. I mean, drugs that are not dangerous, but in fact may be very useful for productivity and creativity. So I like what they're doing in the U.S. because in 2011 I strongly promoted campaigns for legalization of cannabis in the states of Colorado and Washington State, in my home country. And so what they're doing with the legal cannabis is they're using some of the tax money to fund schools and healthcare. And so it's interesting because you're giving adults something that's safe for them that they wish to use recreationally or medicinally, and you're giving adults the freedom to use that in the privacy of their own home without the fear of being arrested. But at the same time, at least you're getting the tax money that you can use for society's benefit. And yet, it's possible to use the taxes earned from cannabis sales to promote social welfare. So the problem with illegal drugs, in my experience, is that what you have with illegal drugs is a black market. The black market is most of the time far more serious and has far more dangerous implications for countries than a legal market or open market. Always.
When I saw Europe ahead of their years, I was saying, wow, this is this is the society
that's on top of it. And Portugal, which actually legalized all drugs in more than 10 years ago. And in fact, from the statistics that I've read, the addiction rates and the drug usage rates in the country of Portugal has actually decreased since they've legalized.
The same way as Netherlands.
It's very interesting. Did you hear about Uruguay? Because Uruguay became the first country to legalize marijuana, I believe last year or the year before that. And it's interesting because the goal with the Uruguayan government is that the government plans on growing the marijuana because they want to get the price as low as possible in order to compete with the black market. Because one of the problems in the states of Colorado and Washington State is that they've legalized it. Adults can go to the store and buy marijuana for personal use. But the problem still is that the black market exists. And you have the black market competing with the legal market. And that's because the black market, in some cases, might be cheaper than even the legal market. I like what Uruguay is planning to do with the government itself will be growing the marijuana and managing it in some cases, which should bring the prices down and should be able to provide a high quality marijuana product to citizens of Uruguay and perhaps even neighboring countries.
And cancel the black market.
And cancel the black market, because that's the main issue when you're talking about illegal drugs. Not only are you keeping very beneficial medicinal drugs away from people, responsible citizens and adults, but you are also allowing the black market to flourish. You're allowing illegal organizations, gangs, mafias to profit off of the loophole of the black market. It's a situation that can only be fixed by openness, evidence-based medicine, and eventual legalization, perhaps globally.
Thank you so much for
Yeah,
this
thank you
wonderful
so much.
conversation.
It was a great conversation.
Great,
I learned so much. Yeah.
No, even from you also, our conversation is always two-way,
Yes.
as I've learned so much and inspired by your passion.
Thank you. I've been an advocate. It's hard to believe it's been this many years, but I've been an advocate of harm reduction, public
Right.
health, and
That's
cannabis for almost 15 years, and you've been actually much longer.
Yes, I agree. Whenever everyone asks me since, well, yes.
Well, and you've been
I've
in
an
important
advocate
positions.
since 1980, and I would say there's really nothing wrong about
There's nothing wrong about cannabis.
cannabis.
Yes, I agree.
So my last message is, to all Filipinos who are also would want to have a better healthcare
Yes.
in the Philippines. I am in full support of the medical cannabis, medical marijuana
Yes.
program. Currently, right now in Congress, it is filed by Representative Albano of Isabela. I'm in full support of that, and
Support the bill. Yeah, we
Yes,
need more
please.
people to
Yeah.
know about it and support it and know the facts about
my fellow
cannabis.
doctors, please study
Yes.
CBD and
Please.
THC.